January 19th, 2016. Please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And let's see, I'm looking for my announcements. Is that up next? Announcements. Okay, thank you. Just a little bit about what's coming up. We had a busy, and what's happened in this last week. We had a busy last week, much of which was spent in Albany with Councilwoman DeTore and Councilwoman Feldman. I had the opportunity to hear directly from Governor Cuomo at a State of the State address about some ambitious plans, some of which will affect municipalities directly. I was pleased to hear the governor was planning to put some state dollars behind a number of initiatives, and am cautiously optimistic that there may be a few new buckets of state dollars that we may be eligible to apply for after the legislature votes on the budget, hopefully by April 1st. And these initiatives can help us with infrastructure, economic development, some road projects, improving minority and women-owned business opportunities, and assisting our police force, and many others. That's just to name a few. We will be speaking a little more about our board training a little bit later in the work session with the Association of Towns, and hopefully we all have an opportunity to chime in a little bit about what we learned up in Albany. I also had a chance to attend multiple events this weekend commemorating the life and work of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., including a wonderful performance by Ossining High School students, and also some from Yonkers for the Cooperative Scholarship Fund of Ossining, a moving ceremony that was sponsored by the Briarcliff Manor Ossining Ministerial Association at Star of Bethlehem Baptist Church in Ossining, with students from the Briarcliff High School Chorus and the Ossining High School Black Culture Club, as well as other local talent. And finally, an event in Tarrytown that was sponsored by the African American Men of Westchester, where they recognize students who have lived the ideals of Dr. King and carry on his good work. And we know we all must keep working for equality and justice for all people. And this was a wonderful weekend to join with one another and solidify our commitment to those goals. Some upcoming dates that I wanted to note, which include a number of activities happening at the Ossining Recreation Center. Registration for Ossining baseball and softball, if you can believe it, this Thursday night, January 21st from 7 to 9 p.m. And then again on Saturday, February 6th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Joseph Caputo Recreation Center. There's more information at jcysports.org registration forms. Also this Thursday night at 6:30 at the Boudars Theater in the Ossining Public Library, we have the Ossining documentary and discussion series showing the film Fed Up, upending the conventional wisdom of why we gain weight and how to lose it about the American food industry. Also, we know we have a storm predicted, possibly our first big snow for the season, if the predictions are correct, this Friday night into Saturday. Please remember there is no overnight parking anywhere in the town from November 1st to April 1st from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. If you do have a vehicle parked on the street that gets in the way of the highway department's plowing operation, it may be ticketed and or removed. Please make sure to make your own preparations. Don't wait until the last minute to make any purchases you might need for Saturday so that you don't get stuck. On the other hand, it's time to register for the Ossining Organic Community Garden Plot for the 2016 season. So while we're prepping for the storm, we're thinking about gardening. Registration started on January 12th and goes through February 16th at the rec center, and you need a current recreation ID card. The program fee is $20 per plot. If you've had a plot in the past, you still need to reapply. Registration is available through February 16th on Mondays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Tuesdays through Fridays from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., and you can also contact the community garden folks at oocgcoords@gmail.com. The Ecuadorian consulate is from Westchester County and the state of New York will be at the Ossining Public Library in the theater, assisting with visas, passport information, and healthcare questions in both English and Spanish, and it's free this Saturday January 23rd from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I don't think we have a snow date yet. Hudson Corral is welcoming new members in all voice parts, and auditions are on January 25th at Pleasantville Presbyterian Church, 400 Bedford Road in Pleasantville. Rehearsals are for May 14th concert, starting shortly after the auditions. For more information, you can contact Jean Wygant at 914-478-0074. The Library Board of Trustees' regular monthly meeting is this Monday, January 25th at 7 p.m., and it is open to the public in the director's office on the second floor of the library, and that's the Ossining Public Library. Ongoing Thursdays at 1:30 at the library, the Senior Benefits Information Centers are available January 21st and January 28th. For anybody who has questions about Medicare or other senior benefits, and they'll be on the second floor of the Ossining Public Library. It's targeted to adults age 60 and older and those caring for the elderly to achieve a better understanding of Medicare health plans and prescription drug coverage. These programs are extremely helpful. It's good to know this information when you're helping if we're helping our parents or ourselves as we get a little bit older. There's an author reading by a friend of mine I happened to see. It's called from the book One of These Days, or an article One of These Days by Wayne Michael Winfield, this Sunday, January 24th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. at the Briarcliff Manor Public Library. And he will read some excerpts from his short story. Wayne is a writer and creative director for New York Ad Agency. As I mentioned last week, there is a planning board meeting tomorrow, Wednesday night, January 20th at 7:30 p.m. at the John Paul Rodriguez Ossining Operations Center. Please go to our website to look at the planning board page for more information. And do any of my colleagues have any announcements?
Oh, yes, I do.
And one.
I'm sorry.
Tomorrow night, which is Wednesday, January 20th, and I don't know if this will have aired yet, but there is a naloxone training. Senator David Carlucci is hosting it at the Ossining Public Library in the Boot Arts Theater at 5:30 to 7 o'clock. And that would be the training for the antidote for any opioid drug use overdose that somebody has. And it's free. You would get a certificate, and you would also get a kit, I believe. So again, that's tomorrow, January 20th, Wednesday, in the Boot Arts Theater at 5:30.
All right. Hearing none others, I would like to go into our work session. And the first item on our agenda for the work session is a review of a proposed local law number 3 of 2016, changes to the town secret regulations. I am going to turn this discussion over to open it up to our counsel, Christy Tomadonna, to discuss a little bit about why we feel this local law is something that we should be considering.
Yes, thank you. So the state has enacted under Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and they're implementing regulations. This was done back in the 70s, and after that time, it was permissible for municipalities to adopt their own regulations. There was since an overhaul in the mid-1990s, and it changed the way the local and the state laws could interact, and so it's very limited now in the ways in which the local regulations can be inconsistent with the state regulations. And so upon review of the code, which we understand in the local code, which has not been updated in a while, there are ways in which it is inconsistent, which we believe would require a lot of time and money to go through and kind of pick all of those items out in comparison and make sure that it is entirely consistent. And we thought a more prudent way to make sure that the town is in compliance going forward is just to repeal the entire thing, because there are very detailed and specific procedural and substantive guidelines under the state law which are required to comply with for how to go about complying with the environmental review. And so that would sufficiently satisfy the town's needs, especially since you're required to comply with them anyway. And then for the narrow instances in which the town would like to be more protective of the environment, which there may be a few in the code, we're not exactly sure, because we weren't able to find a whole lot. It would be, of course, this board's prerogative with input from its consultants and other boards to add additional items back in to the extent appropriate under the law. But for the purposes of just now and making sure that the town code is in compliance with state law, we recommend just taking the action of repealing it entirely and then moving forward from there.
Anybody have particular questions? Otherwise, I want to just add a couple of little items to that discussion. I just wanted to mention that I had the opportunity to, we have sent the proposed local law and I think a little discussion on why we think that this might be necessary to our Environmental Advisory Committee. And so we're hoping that we will also hear back from them. Hopefully they'll also support this. And also, I had spoken briefly with our town planning consultant to ask him, and he said that we've actually really been following the state regulations, but it would be good to clean it up in our local law because we haven't done that. So even though we follow the state code, I'm just trying to find the right actual words.
State guidelines.
The state guidelines, thank you. And regulations, we don't have that codified in our own local law. So he also supported us doing this. So just want us to do that. The procedure would be for us to, now I forget the dates, at our next regular meeting to call for a public hearing on this local law, and then that would be on our February 9th. We'd have the public hearing scheduled for February 9th if everybody was in favor of calling for that public hearing for that date. So that would be sort of our next steps, and then we'd have an opportunity for the public to weigh in, and if the EAC had any concerns about it, that would be an opportunity for them to weigh in. Again, this is something that once we kind of would go to my understanding is once we would go back to using the state regulations, if we wanted to then add on to it, we could, but we're starting from a better place if we start with the state regulations than if we're starting with this local town code that's kind of outdated.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. That's exactly what's going to be happening. And I did also speak with the town planning consultant, and he did reiterate that it has been the town's practice for a long time to obviously follow the state regulations as required, and that there would be nothing to preclude the town from adding back in more protective measures to the extent they're consistent with and permitted by the regulations. It just starts you off at a level playing field so that you're not constantly concerned about what could come up. You can just be proactive and go forward.
Questions about this or discussion? No? Okay. Well, in that case.
We can add on as we see fit.
Yeah, and then we'll bring it up again. This will come up at our next regular meeting. Again, a call for a public hearing. Next item of discussion is something that we would like to call a special meeting later on this evening to talk again about a request for an environmental impact statement from to the town of Newcastle. So the town of Newcastle is where the Sunshine Children's Home expansion is proposed for. And the town of Ossining feels that there are environmental impacts to the town of Ossining, and as such, we would like to send a letter to the town of Newcastle basically requesting that they require the applicant, the Sunshine Home, for their expansion to carry out an environmental impact statement, and that's what we have a letter that we're considering, and we can read the letter out loud, which I'm happy to do, and then if there's any discussion or suggestions, there's also a resolution which we'll be reading later on in the special meeting in support of a positive declaration. This was something that had come up with the previous town board, and for a variety of reasons decided to postpone it until now for the new town board to take up. So we're kind of continuing the concerns that were already in place from the last town board, and if this current town board shares those concerns and believes that we should ask Newcastle to require an EIS, then we will send this letter.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why is it addressed to the zoning board of appeals? Isn't it the planning board that
should
would
actually-
issue the?
The zoning board?
No,
I actually thought it was the planning board was the lead agency.
they're the one that has to give the
Well,
variance.
the variance.
So-
I understand that, but in terms of the environmental impact statements, would be the zoning board that would provide?
It's our understanding that that the zoning board is the lead
the zoning
agency
board is
for
the
the
lead
purposes
agency.
of the
Is the lead.
secra
Okay.
review. It would go to whoever is the lead agency under secra, and it's our understanding that for this project, that is the zoning board.
That's funny. I thought somebody else said planning, but yes, okay.
We will triple
Well,
check.
triple
I
check.
was
Okay.
gonna say, I
course.
just
Whoever
want
is
to
the
make
lead
sure that
agency.
we're sending it to the right.
Okay. So I will read this letter that we are proposing that we'll talk about later in a resolution. Dear Sirs, addressed to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Town of Newcastle, the Town of Ossining has been approached by many of our residents about the proposed expansion of the Sunshine Children's Home located at 15 Spring Valley Road. As you are aware, Sunshine's property borders the Town of Ossining, and for many years we have had a relationship based on the sewer lift station, which the town maintains and which also allows for Sunshine to tie into the town's sewer system. The proprietor of Sunshine has approached the town about their proposed expansion and has requested permission to upgrade and expand the capacity of the aforementioned sewer lift station, a request to which we have not yet responded. While the town board was in the process of considering the request to upgrade the lift station, several issues were raised by Ossining residents, town board members, and Newcastle residents about the environmental concerns surrounding the expansion, including but not limited to the clearing of mature trees, increased traffic volume both during and after construction, soil displacement and quality of transplanted soil, drainage, availability of adequate water, impact on the sewer system, specifically the Parker Bale lift station in Ossining, and the impact on the Indian Brook watershed. The town board took all of these comments under advisement, and upon conducting an independent review and seeking input from the town's consultants, has found that the proposed expansion has the potential for several significant adverse environmental impacts. As such, we would like to express our desire for the Town of Newcastle Zoning Board, which is lead agency on this action pursuant to SECRA, to adopt a positive declaration and require the applicant to prepare an environmental impact statement after receiving public input on the scope of the EIS, including by holding a public scoping session. It is our understanding that the zoning board is meeting next week to continue working with this applicant, and we are hopeful that you will take our request into consideration. Sincerely, me, on behalf of the town board. So, is our sitting town board okay with this letter? And
Yes.
if so, yes.
Yes.
Are there any questions, concerns? I will just say the Parker Bale lift station has been brought to our attention by our highway superintendent, that the impact of there would be a need to upgrade the lift station that's actually, I believe, on the property of Sunshine Home, but this is a different lift station that would also be impacted by the increased capacity, or the increased, say it again?
Runoff?
Right, the increased impact. I mean, stuff. Increased stuff.
Stuff is right.
Increased strain on the infrastructure.
I just wondered whether it should be signed by you or by you on behalf of. Or
On behalf
by
of.
the entire, well, but it doesn't say that.
Right. Okay, so we can put that, we'll put that in there. It should say that, on behalf of. And any other concerns about that?
But this is not the one that we were concerned about, the Parker Bale. It was the, I don't know, what's the name of the other one?
Well, the other lift station
It's just
Is
the
the
little.
one
is the
in the park,
one
the
that
Cedar Lane one.
would need to,
What?
we understand it would need to be upgraded. The
Yeah,
one, it's Cedar Lane, at
that's
Cedar
the
Lane
one.
Park.
I would call it the Cedar Lane Park.
Okay,
I
but
don't know what's
that's the
name.
one we were concerned more about than Parker Bale. I don't know when Parker Bale come up. Because I didn't,
Well, like I said, our highway superintendent has brought it to our attention. So,
That what? I'm sorry, that Parker Bale eventually,
get
because
the
it
runoff
goes
well, it
from-
has to go through.
Right.
through there,
Through
and we'll
here
get,
to-
and then
through that
that's the
one.
one that
Exactly.
will be negatively impacted
Yeah.
more than.
I don't know
than
if
this-
more, but
Also. In addition.
additionally,
In addition.
it's
Okay.
not just the lift station that's right there.
Okay,
That,
got it.
but we can include that lift station as well, the Cedar Lane.
But
Park.
what
We'll
I'm-
include
what
that
I'm
in.
trying to find out, ask is that if you rebuild this other one,
Right.
and now you put more pressure on Parker Bale, what's gonna happen here?
Well,
That's
that's
his concern.
the concern. That's what we feel like it needs to be evaluated, because it's not just going to impact that one. It's going to impact two.
Or more.
Okay.
And that one is maybe,
Next.
Because I think once you hit Parker Bale, you mostly gravity fed from there, I believe. I don't remember for sure, but I think it's pretty much gravity downhill.
Right.
These others that they have to pump.
right.
But
So-
definitely something we should look into.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Just that this particular project will have a significant impact
Yeah.
on both the closer and the little farther out lift station. So we want to make sure that we make mention of that to Newcastle so they understand that we're concerned about it.
Right.
That's
One-
interesting, that's a new thing we hadn't heard of.
And you know, Michael G. said he's happy to come and talk to the board about it if we want more information. I thought that we should just include it in the letter at this point, since we know that it's going to have potential impact. So, I'm good with that? Okay. I'm going to table the next two items that were on the agenda. We're going to be talking about the Knox box law and the building department fee schedule with John Hamilton from the building department. He needed a little bit more time. We kind of sprung this on him late in the game, and he needed a little more time to gather some more information, so he asked if we could postpone it, which we will do. So next up is a little talk about our newly elected official school that was conducted by the Association of Towns up in Albany last week, and Councilwoman Feldman, Councilwoman Dottori, and I were up there together. So I would love to turn it over to either one of you, whoever wants to start, to talk a little bit about what we learned up there, and then I'll go through stuff at the end.
Okay, well, it was very interesting to go up to Albany and get to talk to 900 and something other newly elected town council and town supervisors from all over New York State.
And clerks.
And clerks, and even a highway superintendent I met. Very
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
And even some who weren't newly elected. Right? There were a
yeah,
few
there were
coming
some there
for
just
re-
for the information. That was really nice.
review.
A lot of information. The New York State Comptroller seems to be in possession of all of the laws and there for anybody who needs to look up the laws and what we need to learn in learning a town. And they're watching us. A lot about budgeting and fund balances and the fact you really don't have as much money as you think you do. But I really learned to appreciate our board that came before us in leaving us in a good position with a good understanding. They've been really, from Sue to our fellow past and current board members, have really been taking the time to teach me as a new council member all the things I need to know. I ran into board members who had all of their paperwork shredded and computers erased, and they were starting from scratch. So it was a real appreciation of not only our previous board, but also our finance office and Maddie, who fills out so many of these forms we were shown that have to be filed constantly. Really glad that's not my job. Understanding them, I appreciate that I now know how to understand them, but really happy it's not my job. And that we have an amazing highway department. I mean, you know, everything that they came up with, Ossining really seems to be on top of, and I was very proud of how good our town does, and I learned a whole lot, so it was good.
I would like to echo what Councilmember Feldman said. It was a great opportunity for new board members like ourselves to be able to be exposed to an extremely comprehensive agenda, 3 days full of everything you need to know to be a town council person, really opened our eyes to the responsibility that we have. We know that it's a big responsibility. We take it seriously, but we have an even deeper understanding of what that responsibility means, what the obligations are, and very, very thankful to have our previous board, our previous board members who have been here longer, set a really good foundation for us. We have a great operation in Ossining. We're well poised to meet the needs of the community. We are in good shape in that regard. That was certainly one of the learnings. But everything from budgeting to ethics to roads, a comprehensive 3-day, if you can imagine, 3 days of everything you needed to know on almost every single topic for the to manage the town of Ossining was an enormous opportunity. So very thankful that we were able to go. And I think if there was one takeaway is that with the enormous amount of information that we need to know, that we have tremendous resources to provide that information. So it was almost impossible to remember everything that was gone over the 3 days. But tremendous resources and support for that, and a really good understanding of what we didn't know. So anyway, thank you very, very much. It was a great opportunity, and I think our supervisor will have some words of insight as well.
I'm just going to read a couple of the items that were actually on the agenda, just so you know exactly what we got to. We had an introduction to the Office of the State Comptroller, and as Councilperson Feldman mentioned, that we had a lot of opportunity to hear from the Comptroller's office and learn about what kinds of things they look for when they audit us, and what we can do to make sure we have a clean audit. They also talked about effective meeting management for town boards and what is a town, what service does a town provide. Hopefully we knew some of these things, but we had an opportunity to learn more about all of them and who provides those services. And as both my colleagues mentioned, it's great that we have, it's great to know that our town doesn't stop functioning when boards change, when supervisors change. There's a great group in place of staff that have been working on to make sure that everything continues to function through snow and ice and other such things as that, and lift stations, and we have a great deal of knowledge here on our from our past board members as well as from our staff. They offered us some toolkits about motions and resolutions and ordinances and local laws, and talked to us about what the difference is about all of those and how we need to notice the public with more time for local laws, for example, where we have to have public hearings, but for resolutions we don't need as much time to notice that we are going to be adopting a resolution or an ordinance. We talked about the legalities of purchasing and competitive bidding, so we understand when it is that we need to go out to bid, when we require a request for a proposal. Municipal liability insurance needs were discussed. Financial record keeping for town clerks was for the town clerks. And then fiscal accountability for town boards, ethics. We had a great talk by Bob Friedman of who's the executive director of Committee on Open Government for New York State, in the Department of State, who talked about the Freedom of Information Law and our Open Meetings Law. And he mostly did a question and answer, which was a huge relief from our talking heads that were talking to us the whole time. But he was very effectively hit most of the main questions I think that we all had. And he gave us some additional questions that we have to ask ourselves about and make sure that we're doing our job, making sure that we speak in public about the big picture and all of the other things that we talk about here, so that our public has an opportunity to comment and be a part of our conversations. We talked about personnel management for town boards, an overview of the town supervisor's accounting responsibilities, the minutes process, records management, cash management, retirement reporting for elected and appointed officials, planning and zoning basics, good town roads. Yes, we spent 1.5 hours talking about town roads. There were a lot of good cartoons mixed into that to keep us smiling. And then the town clerks had an opportunity to talk about a couple of other items. So it was absolutely a thorough discussion about all of the things that we are responsible for, that we need to know about, and if anybody wants any of the information that was shared with us, we'll be happy to share it. This is a small stack of some of the stuff that they gave us. So, anyway, with that, I think we could now move to our next order of business, which is going to be our discussion of by our receiver of taxes. And I'm not seeing that on here, but I know it is on here. On the new version, I must have the old version. I have too many versions. Thank you. Who's going to be discussing an update on delinquent taxes. So hopefully she'll be here any moment, and until she gets here, if there's anybody else who has any other thing that they want to talk about or something's come to you and you'd like to tell a joke to our public.
I was just going to ask you, did you? It's not.
Yeah, okay.
Did you come away thoroughly confused?
I wouldn't say confused, but like I think, as Karen mentioned, with overwhelmed,
Okay, all
and
right.
with lots more questions. You know, that's what happened. It generates like, oh, are we doing this? Are we doing that? And the good news is that, you know, as we ask these questions of ourselves and our staff, and we find out, yes, in fact, we are doing this and we are doing that.
Almost everything
And-
they mentioned.
Exactly.
Everything so far.
So that was good to know. And then, you know, there's probably some things that it's good to know that maybe we could be doing better. So there's always that opportunity to be doing things even better. What happened to our receiver of taxes? Oh, here she is. Okay. And we are ready for you.
Okay. Just realized I left the outline upstairs.
Oh,
Can you wait?
What?
Can you wing it?
I could wing it, but I thought it would be helpful for you, to have an outline, but I'll tell you, it's all in the papers. So I'm going to pass these around. This is the tax receivers monthly report. First of all, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here.
oh, can you just
Turn
put your
your mic on.
microphone on?
Oh, my mic's not on?
It is there.
Okay, now it is.
Oh, hello? I guess it's on. Okay, I'd like to pass these around. That's the original. There you go. And 3, 4, 5, 6. I might need another one.
I didn't take one, so that's
Oh, here, then you can have one.
thank you.
And also these. And what I wanted to do tonight was to give you an overview of tax collection and the enforcement of delinquent taxes, because every month I'm required by law to give you a report. And that report that I give you has a lot of information in it, and it can be overwhelming. So I thought I would explain to you what the report is, what it says, so that you'd understand it as you read it, and then an explanation of how we collect the taxes that are not paid during the month of collection. I have to say that roughly 95% of the taxes are collected on time. But that leaves at least 500 that are delinquent at the end of a collection period. So the first page of the tax receiver's monthly report, and this report is outlined in the Westchester County Code, and it tells what we have to report to the board each month. So it starts off with the balance from the previous month, what's collected during the month of the report, and the balance at the close. And this is required by Section 548 of the Westchester County Administrative Code, and it's the statement of unpaid taxes and tax liens. So the first thing on there is a delinquent tax lien cash. Now this is all of our liens together. The next one, we're the only place in New York State where 2 town taxes are collected at the same time. So I still have 2014 on there, but that'll become 2016. And during the month of April, May, and June, both 2015 and 2016 will be open at the same time. Then there are the 2 school taxes and the library tax. So if you look at this report, you could see that during the month of December, we collected more than $11 million in taxes, and 77,000 of that was delinquent tax lien cash. Now, all of the taxes for the school and library gets transferred on the 5th day of the following month to the school districts. Yes.
Real quick, is it, we're doing 2015, 16, does it go by school year?
It
Or-
goes by the year the lien is the tax is levied.
So if we're looking at 2 calendar years, January to January, or 2 school years?
You're looking at 1 school year,
Okay,
the 15-16 school year,
okay.
and right now only 1 town-county year, but come March, we're going to have 2 town years open.
Okay.
Now, the school goes from July 1 to June 30.
Right.
So that's why you call it 15-16. But for the purposes of the New York State enforcement of delinquent taxes and for the purposes of real property tax law, you name it by the year in which it's levied. And this was levied in 15. So I have to treat it like all 2015 taxes.
So you're still collecting back taxes? Okay.
Well, we collect back taxes all year long. There's never a time when we don't have 4 years of taxes open, and I'll get to that. There's always 4 years. Okay, so the other things that we collect, we have memo bill fees. That's something that I started. We were allowed to do that by law, but Ossining didn't do it. So at one point, I brought that before the board and suggested that we could make revenue with memo bill fees. Memo bill fees are a $5 charge that you can collect from title companies, banks, not homeowners. We don't ask the homeowners to do that. But if they provide a payment without a bill, we can collect a $5 duplicate bill fee or memo bill fee. And we collect more than $3,000 or so each year in that. Legal fees are the fees that are on the liens when we are foreclosing. Late penalties are just the penalties when you collect school tax when they're late, when you collect town-county taxes and they're late. These are the penalties prescribed by the Westchester County Code. Tax lien interest is 1% per month. It's different than late penalties. The late penalties work off of a chart that's in the Westchester County Code. And the overpayments are things that are sitting there right now that we need to research and go back and refund. But in some case, we need to get documentation as to where the refund is supposed to go. So we ask people to provide that. Now, if you turn to the next page, this is how it breaks down by day. Those categories are across the top. The school tax, library, Briarcliff School, penalties, the different, the 2 town taxes, memo bill fees, etc. We usually keep the memo bill fees, they're $5 each, and those we don't have to deposit within 24 hours. So we'll keep them until we have a few, like here we had $20, but $5, you could see that they come in sporadically, but when it gets, the collection gets heavy and we start getting a lot in, we'll keep them and do like 90 in one day. And if you look down at the bottom, you could see the total collected. So, how does this really read? If you go across, you get the total cash or the total amount of money collected in a day. But then we have an adjustment column, and sometimes the adjustments are bounce checks or things that happen. Like if you turn to the next page, you'll see adjustments. And here they were two different bounce checks. One was a stop payment and one was a real bouncer. And then those are subtracted off to get the total of the collection. And then we have to add a $20 bounce check fee, and we collect it later. So on that second page, we have anything that's going to come off of the collection. So the overpayments, these are refunds that we've done, and we identify that, and the amount comes off of the overpay column. So if you look at the $4,061.60, and you go back to the first page, it's in the adjustment field at the bottom of the overpayment column. Okay, and the bounce checks are in the adjustment columns underneath the proper category. So during the month of December, we collected close to $12 million. And that's because I did get, if you look at line, the CL12 on 1228, it's over $8 million. That's CoreLogic, that's a tax service agency. I got 2,000 payments in a wire and a file, and that's why December is really, really high. But they always do that. They do that every December. Are there any questions so far in the first two pages? Because the next page is quite simple. The next page is the liens. These are the liens that were collected. Now, go down lien year, and you could see we've got 2015, 2014, there's a 12, there's a 13, 14, and then back up to the 15. These are the liens that we collected during the month of December. And during December, a particular property that we had a judgment of foreclosure on, but the town board granted extra time for the owners to sell the property, that came in. And that's why we had a 2012, 13, and 14 lien on that one. And that cleared up a lot of our delinquencies on there. Are there any questions on liens? You could see that there's that particular property had a $900 legal fee because that had been through a foreclosure, and that includes the legal fee, the publication fee, and the title search fee for that property for the year of the foreclosure. Now, do you have the last page? Do you have another page? Okay, I'm missing it here, but I'll have it here. It's not on that last one. This last page, which I include, is the annual report, so that as we go along, what's interesting about this report is you could see the ebb and flow and the cycle of the collections. And, for example, there's the slowest month that we have for collection is July. And that in July, the reason why that happens is we have to roll over our liens. We have to take the delinquent taxes and create liens and file them with the county. And that happens at the end of June, beginning of July. So you could see here we have a little bit of school tax there, but then there's no school tax for that year, and that's because the current year became a lien, and then we start with August with the new school tax. So that's our break. During July, we're very busy doing the foreclosure and the lien rollover, because that's when enforcement reaches a peak. That we start our title searches, we start the foreclosures going, and if we're going to do an auction, we had traditionally done them around August, so we would have worked on that then. But we can do auctions whenever we want to. Are there any questions on the monthly report? Okay.
You're going to, but can you just talk about how something goes from the lien to the auction? Oh, is that, you are doing? Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay,
I,
thank you.
I
At least I maybe
always
can
like
talk about
to, and this is what I had written down and I left it upstairs. All right. I like to think of my 4 years, I have 4 years worth of taxes at the same time, open at all times. And that's because it takes that long under real property tax law to actually follow the process. So if you look at this large page, this will give you the idea, and I'll take you through this cycle. My freshman class, that's the current tax that we are collecting. Now, you asked Liz about the dates. The 2015 taxes right now are my freshman class. Anything levied in 2015. And right now, I still have about 80 current year town-county taxes from 2015 that are not paid. And there are over 4,000 school taxes still not paid because they're due by the end of this month and there's a 10% penalty. After the end of January, I expect there to be about 500. But right now, there's like 170 some that did not pay their first half. So there's 2 stages of delinquency with the school tax, those that are late on the first half and those that are late on the second half and those that are late on both. So current year, my freshman class is not on this page.
Just to be clear, Gloria, for anybody who's following along, September is the first for the school, and then January is the second. Can you just be clear about
Yes.
that?
Yes. The school fiscal year goes from July 1 to June 30 of the following year. So I like to think of it like semesters. The first semester bill is due in September and the second semester in January. And if you think of it that way, it helps you to remember when a bill is due. The first half goes into penalty at 2% in October, then 5% in November, 7% in December and January, 10% in February, and then 12% in April. Now, I don't make these numbers up. They come from the Westchester County Code Section 283, which is the Westchester County Tax Act. And that tax act sets us apart from the entire rest of the state, because the rest of the state, it's 5% the first month, and then 1 additional % each month, so it's higher than it is in Westchester. Now, the problem with the second half is people say to me, well, how come it's not 2% in February? It's not. And that's because it's 10%, which is what the penalty schedule is for the first half. Why is that so? It seems pretty high, and it's really difficult in my office to explain that to people because they come in and they're really angry if they forgot it. Well, the reason is because that bill becomes a lien on your property. Every tax is a lien. When I talk about rolling over into liens, I'm talking about filing the delinquent taxes with the county. But when a tax is levied on your property, it becomes a lien. And you can't sell your house unless that lien is paid. So at a closing, the title company will handle the taxes and all open taxes get paid, except for second half school. And the reason why the title companies don't do that is because if you're closing during the period between September and December 31st, they figure the new owner has to pay that, and they let the new owner pay it. That's sometimes a problem if the new owner doesn't know to come into the office, because we don't know who bought and sold a house, and sometimes it could take more than a month. So for the county to get through and get the new information to us, so it really can be an issue. But why is it 10%? And it's in the Westchester County Code. It's because in the rest of the state, the entire bill is due and payable in September, by September 30th. When Westchester gives you a grace period, that's what they call it. You've got a grace period to pay the second installment. But what that means is that you have no penalty on the second half during October, November, and December, and January. But at the end of January, if it's not paid, the penalty falls right in where the first half penalty is, and it's 10%. So I urge everybody, if there's anybody out there who hasn't paid their school tax yet, please do so before the end of January, because we really hate to have to explain that to you in person, and you'll be angry. So
Isn't it also true that if somebody brings a check in and says, we don't want you to deposit it, so to avoid a late fee, they can actually send it early but ask that you don't?
Absolutely. That's on the little letter that goes in the bill, and I'm glad you brought that up, because what happens is if they bring it in, and they bring it in early, that allows us to have it and actually post it for the last day of the collection, keep it separate, and it doesn't go to the bank until after the last day of the collection. But it does give us an opportunity to get it posted. And then we could look it up and see that it's posted for January 31st. We hold it, and when it goes to the bank, it'll be February 1st. That allows a person to make sure that it's here. The taxpayers have the security of knowing that if it snows, as it has on January 31st, they don't have to go out in the bad weather to get it to us. And we have the security of knowing that it's there, and we can post it when we have more time and not when we have the crush on the last few days.
And just while we're still talking about getting taxes paid on time, and we talked about some of the penalties that accrue if you don't, I know a lot of times people say, having worked in Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff's office, and we'd often get calls, you might have even sent them our way and said, well, it's state law, which is true, that if you don't pay your tax on time, even if you're in the hospital, God forbid, something's wrong, and you might end up, you could be in a hospital for a month or something like that, you're still obligated to pay your taxes on your property. So you can't, I hate to say it, but truly there are no excuses, and part of it is because the town is responsible for making everyone else whole.
Actually, I think it was Ben Franklin who said nothing's definite but death and taxes. And actually, there's no way that I can bend any of the laws. However, it does take an act of the state legislature. When there was a hurricane or a tornado upstate, they passed legislation allowing the people who were affected to have a longer period to pay. When the World Trade Center came down, the state legislature gave people who were involved. But that was very difficult because we had to ask, well, what was your involvement? I don't like to have to be the person to make those kinds of decisions. I like it to be clearer so that nobody could think that we're doing favors for anyone. It's just the way it is. Nobody gets a reprieve, and I have to look at the postmarks, and I have to make sure that there's a valid United States postmark. And that means not a Pitney Bowes and not a Neopost, because that's postage. That's not a postmark. And people do get that confused. So when your letter goes through the sorting centers at the post office, it gets a scan line put on it and it gets a date put on it. That's the postmark, not something else. And I have to also thank Sandy Galeff, because back in 2002 when I became the receiver of taxes for Ossining, the first thing I brought to her was the fact that we could not accept FedEx. We couldn't accept UPS. And people thought, I'm going to make sure it gets there. I'm going to FedEx it, overnight delivery. And yet we couldn't accept a FedEx in our office, even if it was sent on January 31st. On February 1st, I couldn't take it. I couldn't accept it. And Sandy got that law changed. So I was really, really pleased that now we can do that, because a lot of people like to use those if they're sending them from out of town. I have in my office, and I urge you to come and visit, I have a postal wall of shame. And the postal wall of shame is the mail that got chewed up and put into little plastic bags or little plasticine envelopes, and it has shredded checks in them and everything. And, you know, it's very difficult when machines are handling everything, and something will get caught sometimes. And over the last 14 years, I have a collection of those on the board. I like to encourage people also to pay on our town website, because those payments go directly from your bank account to our bank account without any kind of paper transfer, no mail, no nothing. It happens as an ACH transfer. It's exceptionally safe, and you get an email receipt, and I get an email telling me that you paid. So I like to urge people to use that at not their bank account pay, not their bank's web payment site, because those come by mail and they don't have a postmark. So if you do it too late in the month, it's a problem. So,
Can we go on to this?
yeah. Oh, did Mr. Wiltshire have a question?
Yeah, well, we don't want to, I guess.
Yeah, I want to get back. So those aren't, my freshman class isn't even on here because, you know, like I said, there's more than 4,000 of them. And those are the people that still have until the end of January to pay the school. And then during February, March, and April, and May, and June, we're still collecting those delinquencies. So we're sending out delinquent letters, we're contacting banks. Every month I have to send a file to CoreLogic and to the other tax service agencies. They pay for that, and that's one of the fees. We have 3 tax service agencies. We used to have 6, but they've all merged, and now they're down to 3. So that brings us to July, or actually the end of June. The end of June is the end of collection for the current year class. And just as you move up in school and you graduate to the next grade, that's what happens in the summer with all of these taxes. So the current year tax, the 2015 taxes that we're collecting now, in June, will, if they're not paid, they get combined along with the town, the county, the penalties, and a $20 fee that covers the court fees, the filing fees for the court, and the advertising fees. That gets rolled into one lien and filed on a list of delinquent taxes with the county, and voila, they've now become sophomores. And right now, I have 50 sophomores. These are properties with 2015 liens, meaning that they were rolled over in June, July of 15, and they are now my sophomore class. When I rolled them over, there were many more than 50. We're down to 50. And if you look at the report again that I gave you for this past month, or for December, you could see on there a lot of 2015 liens were paid. If you look on this report, that page, and you go down the year, you'll see that there's a lot of them, because people, will pay them. And sometimes they'll pay them because they're selling a house. Sometimes they'll pay them because they managed to catch, to get the money together to pay them. But all delinquent taxes have to be paid in reverse chronological order, meaning that I have to take the newest one first before we can take the older ones. So in order to pay that lien, they had to have paid their first half school and their town county from 15. Now, they have a year from the time we file it with the county, they have a year to pay that. I'd like to also suggest that you pull out and look at the same time that we go through this chart, because this is a visual representation of that data. The 2015 liens, oops, I don't even have the 15 liens on this chart. And that's because the 15 liens would have been here. They are the new liens. On this chart, I have the 14 liens. Those are the ones in my junior class. But these people still have another year to pay, another half year, until June. And in June, the people with a 2015 lien move to the next stage. We do a title search. We start contacting the people on the title search, and then we go and start the next stage of the foreclosure, which is to actually notify people, and we send this to our attorney. And the attorney will send out the proper notices to all the people in the title searches, and it moves into the foreclosure. So are there any questions on the 15 liens? This is all we have, just 50 people. And we're really hoping, and it's 50 liens, but it's not necessarily 50 different people, because sometimes there's more than one for a particular person, or they might have, for example, 2 lots or 3 lots. Okay, so now we have my private tutoring, because I'm moving up from the bottom. Private tutoring, I like to think of private tutoring as the people who come forward, who know that they're in trouble, they have a lien, they're facing the foreclosure, and under the town code they can apply for a payment plan. So I have one right now. Last year during the foreclosure, we started with 45 properties in the foreclosure. I had 9 liens. This year we started with 19 properties, and I only have one payment plan. If people move forward and they meet the criteria in the town code, we can do a payment plan. But the board would have to approve that. And you can't have been in a foreclosure in the preceding 5 years, and you can't have multiple properties that are subject to the foreclosure. So those are some of the criteria. You have to put down at least 25% or 50% of the balance, or pay the current year's taxes. And if you're in a payment plan, you have to make all payments on current taxes on time. I've had very few of these fail. People use them not only to get caught up, but also to buy time so that they could sell a property. And very few have failed, maybe 2 in 14 years. The next group, the junior class. These are the properties that have currently been notified by our attorney's office. It's been filed with the county as a foreclosure, and they have a period of time to redeem until February 5th. February 5th, we can move forward with the appropriate paperwork and get a judgment of foreclosure. Once we have a judgment of foreclosure, the town board could still decide to grant a homeowner who's living in the home more time to pay or time to sell the property. That's done on a case-by-case basis. The ones that are highlighted in green, those are highlighted in green because those people have contacted me, and I have expectations that they will pay by February 5th. The ones that are not highlighted at all, I have not heard from at all. I've sent this list off to the banks and to the tax service agencies. I haven't heard from them. The orange are people who, those 7 properties are in every 3 years they're in my foreclosure. Every 3 years they're in my foreclosure. And I have not heard from them at all. And those are properties which also owe the village, the ones in orange. They also owe the village significant amounts of money, and the properties are falling into disrepair. They're highlighted because usually at the last minute, I do get a phone call, they will pay, and then I don't hear from them again until the last minute of the 3 years later when there's another foreclosure. So I highlighted them so that in case we do get contacted, we have paperwork ready with the amount due by the deadline. So that is the junior class. The senior class. Now, these are the 3 properties that we took in 2015. We got a judgment of foreclosure, and they are ready to be auctioned. And they are the ones that we would be able to auction. Possibly, I think we should do that in June. But my thought was that we could also, since February is this group, if there are any from this group, my junior class, the junior class here, the 15 properties in the foreclosure, these could also be auctioned because when they move past getting a judgment, you treat a class the same way. So you can't pick and choose and just do, oh, I'm only going to auction that one and that one and that one. You have to auction the whole class. And if there are any left over, they will have had 4 months to contact the board from February to June. So I thought that perhaps we could do the whole group together. Or we could do one in June and another in August, because we usually do it in August anyway. So, and that was, I think we've spoken about some of those. So that's pretty much it. If you look over here at the top, you see 2015, 14, 13. That's the amount of the lien that's open. So you could see that our oldest liens are 2013 right now. And the 14 liens, you could see where they are, that these are the ones, 14 liens are the senior class here, and also the junior class and the tutoring that we like to think of, the payment plan. That payment plan, you notice that there's no 2015 lien because they had to pay in reverse chronological order. They only have a payment due in January and one in February, and he has to pay the current school tax that's open, and that one will be paid off. So that will go away, and in February also we'll get our judgment on the group here. So you could see that this is the oldest, these are the oldest liens. And you could see that here in that everything was collected up through. There was one property, the one that had the fire on State Street, that when we auctioned it, we could not collect the full amount of the value of it for taxes. And so the board did forgive the unpaid tax on that. However, everything else has been collected. We've only had 6 auctions in 14 years, and that's because we work really, really hard to find the people who are responsible for paying. And we find the banks, we find title companies, we search those title searches and we contact people. So it's a lot of digging. And I'd like to thank Julie Davis, who's also a great detective on the internet, in tracking down people and tracking down banks and getting addresses, because we sometimes don't know where the owners live. And the 3 properties that are right here waiting to be auctioned, nobody's contacted us at all about them, and they don't answer anything. So, and they've all been in the foreclosures previously. So that's the foreclosure, and that's the delinquent taxes. That's the monthly report. So I have another thing here to talk to you about. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. When people incur penalties, when somebody goes into delinquency for, say, school tax, is the town responsible to pay the school and then it's up to us to collect it, or is the school waiting for their money?
No, the school does not wait for the money. Let me give you that schedule. When we collect town-county taxes, 1.5% of a taxpayer's total tax bill belongs to the town. 1.5% generally. Always less than 2%.
Right.
Belongs to the town. The rest belongs to either the county or the school district. And the county has sewer districts and a solid waste district. So what happens is, after the April collection, in May, by May 15th, we have to pay the county 60% of the amount that they are owed, whether we've collected it or not. Well, we've always got 60% in May. We've always got it because we generally have 90% of it, but we don't have to pay the county the whole thing. So we give them 60%, and on October 15th, we have to give them the remaining 40%. So we have quite a long time to collect that money. However, like I said, right now, I have close to 80 of the town-county bills that are still unpaid, that we're still we're sending out delinquent letters. But we paid the county the full amount in October.
Okay, so
Now, school, a little different. That's all in the Westchester County Code. But the school, the bill comes out in September, and on the 5th day of the following month, we have to give the school everything that we collected the prior month. I think the 5th day means the 5th business day. I really do. Because we have to have time to make sure that checks haven't bounced. And we have to have time to balance out the report and to make sure that there aren't other errors in it due to, someone's putting a stop payment
so we only
or
have to
whatever.
give them what's collected and not what's
But on
expected.
April 5th, we have to give the school, April 5th. Now, this is January. January 31st is the deadline, and we'll have about 500 unpaid bills in February. February, March, we have 2 more months, only 2 months, that we have to try to get the rest in, because on April 5th, we have to give them the whole amount that was due.
Whether or not the taxpayer
Whether or
paid it.
not we collected it. We have to give them the whole amount.
Lovely.
So that's why the lien collection becomes...
No, she says it's a school.
No, it's Westchester County.
Oh,
In Westchester County
okay.
only, I believe that's.
Yes.
So
In-
my next question is the penalties for not paying. Do we at least get to keep those?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We
Like
do.
for our loans in trouble here. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, the only other thing is that when I create the town-county bills, there are
Sorry, just-
a couple of things that the board needs to do. And that is that we will get unpaid water levies for the properties in the unincorporated area that use village water, and they get their bills from the village. There are properties where they won't have paid the village water bill. And because they haven't paid the village water bill, they're delinquent, and the village has under the IMA that we have for providing water to the unincorporated area, the village has the right to ask us to re-levy that water on the town-county bill. Now, if the property is in the village of Ossining, it's not a problem. The village can re-levy the water on their own bill, but they don't have a bill for people in the unincorporated area. So last year there were 58 properties, and the board has to accept that and re-levy that. And this year, for the first time, we have this new program. If you look at the second page, the Energize New York, I was part of the team of tax receivers that met to discuss how we should re-levy these energy costs on a bill. And what this is a program whereby you can make improvements to your home to save energy and take out a loan from Energize New York. And Energize New York will then actually levy the payments as a lien on the property, so that if the property is sold, it stays on the property, but it gets put on the town-county bill. So the first property to do that, Natty, do you want to discuss that property? Because I didn't go to the open house for it.
Yeah, it's Terra Tile on North State Road. So it has a pretty massive roof that they've done solar improvements on.
And the cost of those improvements were over $200,000, but they expect to be saving quite a bit of money, and the amount that's levied on the bill this year is a little over $26,000. I think it'll be paid off in 10 years, or maybe last year would be 2025. So the board needs to pass a resolution authorizing the inclusion of this on the town-county bill in April. Actually, it should be done in February, so that, and the village water should come in February, so that they can be included on the bills in April. And that's the final thing. Are there any questions on the report? You'll be getting that monthly report every month with the questions on it. And
I just want to know one thing. I see a few addresses are all the same, 0. What does that mean?
zero. You know what the 0 means? It's a vacant lot, and vacant lots aren't assigned numbers. I'm not sure if that's a building department thing or a post office thing, but that's actually the legal definition, so it must have something to do with the building department, that a number is not assigned to a lot unless there's a house on it. Yeah, that is correct, and it drives us crazy because we can't really look it up by address if there's a 0. So then we have to go in by parcel ID. That was a good question.
Great.
Are there other questions? Anybody else have any? No?
No, I thought that was really great and very helpful explanation.
Okay,
So thank
if
you very
there's-
much.
If there's anything, I'm going to email you that outline I did, because
Okay.
just in case.
So
Do you need
at this point, I would like to make a motion to go out of our work session and into our, I'd like to take a motion to go out of our work session and into our special meeting.
Second.
Hear this.
Okay?
Do you need this? Did you get that one?
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're good to go. Okay, so I think we need a roll call for, I don't think we need to do our Pledge of Allegiance again.
No, I don't think we need the pledge again.
We've had our call to order, so we just need a roll call to make sure that everybody's here for our special meeting.
Okay. Councilwoman DeTore? Here. Councilwoman Jeffrey?
Here.
Councilwoman Feldman?
Here.
Councilman Wiltshire?
Absent.
Cute. And Supervisor Levenberg.
I'm here.
Okay. Are there any further announcements? Any public comment on the agenda item?
Our one agenda item. Anybody like to comment?
Okay. Sunshine Children's Home support for positive declaration by Town of Newcastle. Whereas the Town of Ossining is an involved agency pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, in connection with the proposed expansion of the Sunshine Children's Home located in the Town of Newcastle, which is near the border of the Town of Ossining. And whereas the Town Board has reviewed the project, including plans and other submissions in connection with the project, and has educated itself regarding the details of the project, has had its consultants review the proposed project, has heard presentations by the applicant and other interested parties concerning the project, and various Town of Ossining board members have attended proceedings before the Newcastle Zoning Board concerning the proposed project. And whereas the Town Board has concluded that the proposed project will likely result in significant adverse environmental impacts, including but not limited to impacts to the aquifers, watershed, streams, and watercourses, potential impacts resulting from blasting, regrading, and significant quantities of fill being brought in, traffic impacts both during construction due to the volume of fill coming onto the site and the associated truck traffic, and long-term traffic impacts due to the extent of the facility being expanded, and other impacts including drainage issues, runoff, disturbance of slopes, extensive tree removal, visual and aesthetics, noise, air, and changes to the character of the neighborhood due to such a large expansion. Now be it resolved that the Town of Ossining, as an involved agency pursuant to SECRA, hereby recommends and requests that, due to the need to ensure that there is complete and comprehensive review of all the potential significant adverse environmental impacts, as mandated by SECRA, that the Town of Newcastle Zoning Board, as lead agency in connection with the proposed project, adopt a positive declaration and require the preparation of an environmental impact statement after a completed and comprehensive public scoping session in connection with the proposed project. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
I just want to make sure there's no discussion
Oh.
before we vote. Any discussion? All for it. Okay. All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And may I have a motion to adjourn into executive session for personnel and legal
I just
advice?
want to say one thing, and maybe, I think the verbiage in the third whereas that lists a lot of the reasonings, I think should go into the letter to fill it out more. Because in the letter it says some of that, but I think this explains so much about why, and I think if we could just literally put this into here, that it's just a suggestion. It's just when it talks about the specifics of what is the congestion, the extensive tree removal, not just aged trees, but extensive, and I just, it just spoke to me in terms of, and I think that would.
We could also just say that we've attached a resolution that we adopted to the letter, and then have the resolution attached to it, and I think that would be also another way to deal with it.
That might be a perfectly good way to do it.
I mean, because then they can also see that it's a public record, not just like a nice letter that we decided to send, so.
That's actually good.
Okay, great.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
This is just for personnel and.
And legal advice.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and we are now gonna go into executive session, so. Public, thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next week.